Hi there and welcome to Impact, the program that focuses on people and organizations who are making an impact in our community and in our country. In a time when we see so much editing and filtering going on in the media, the purpose of Impact is to provide an opportunity for audiences to get an unfiltered, unedited glimpse of real conversations with our guests. While you might see a cut occasionally for time purposes, to the best of our ability, we want you to get a feel for who our guests really are and what they believe. I invite you to join in the conversation, to share this interview with your friends, and give your opinions and send your feedback. At Impact, we truly believe that the truth brings freedom. And the closer we can get to sharing the truth, the more we'll be able to walk in freedom. Please join me today in welcoming our guest to this episode, Ammon Bundy, independent candidate for governor in this amazing state of Idaho. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
So let's just jump right in. Why are you running for governor?
Well, I would say overall, I believe that it's the right thing to do at the right time.
Okay.
I felt inspired and moved to do so. I also see a great opportunity. We've got a lot of conservative people here in Idaho that are not happy with the establishment, if you will, the status quo. And, you know, you could point to COVID, you could point to just where our country's at. Go look at the price of gas. And people are starting to think differently. They're starting to say, hey, what's been going on isn't working, and if we don't change it, we're going to have a lot of trouble. And so, you know, I feel that it's the right time to give the people a choice.
Good, good. Now, you've been quoted as saying you're running as an independent to restore the Republican platform here in Idaho. Explain.
Well, so the Republican platform here in Idaho and you know, across the country is a righteous platform. It's a good platform. It, you know, is banned abortion, minimize government, you know, fiscal responsibility in government, limited government authority and power. I mean, it is a good platform, but it hasn't been followed.
Right.
It hasn't been followed in Idaho, and it hasn't been followed actually across the country. And so when I look and read that platform, I think this is a good platform. This is a platform that would bring and restore freedom to our country and to the state of Idaho if it was just followed.
Exactly.
And so, you know, and when you say independent candidate, there is no independent party in Idaho. I'm just what they categorize as a unaffiliated candidate. I'm not part of a party.
Okay.
And so I first started running as a Republican, and I could see what the establishment was going to do to me and was trying to do to me. And so right before the deadline, I pulled out and said, look, I'm going to run as an unaffiliated or, you know, an independent candidate so that I can challenge the establishment in the general elections.
Good.
Because, you know, I don't know how far you want to go into it, but what they've been doing here in Idaho is the establishment controls the Republican primaries.
Right.
I mean, very closely because, you know, they get control of the Republican Party, they control the Republican primaries, and they make sure that their guy is the one that makes it through.
Right.
And then what happens now, he's made it through, and Idaho is a conservative state. Well, when they get to the generals, they have no choice. It's either that or some flaming liberal Democrat who wants to, you know, change who we really are.
Right.
I'll just be nice about it. And then the establishment guy. Well, that's why I skipped over that process, and I'm now going to be the conservative choice in the general elections here in Idaho.
Right. So you would say that you're running on the actual Republican platform for real. Like you're going to put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah, I'm a real conservative, if you will.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm an ultra conservative. I'm very conservative. I believe in, you know, that abortion should not be illegal at any level.
Right.
I believe that the Constitution, both state and Idaho, or the U.S. and the state Constitution, should be strictly adhered to.
Right.
I believe that government should be very limited to the purpose in which they were, you know, created for.
Right.
And the list goes on and on. I believe that government should have a budget, and they should be required to follow that budget, and that budget should be based upon the enumerated powers that they have.
Right.
These are all very strict conservative, ideas that are found in the GOP platform, but not followed.
Right, right. So what do you see in Idaho right now? I mean, you can call people out if you need to, but what are you seeing in Idaho?
Well, so Idaho, the rest of the world, the rest of the country sees us as a conservative place, just a small state. And it is, but it's the fastest growing state in the United States.
Yep.
To kind of give you some perspective, we've grown about 260,000 people in the last little over 10 years.
Wow.
That's like adding the size of Boise, which is our largest city, every 10 years
Wow.
to our state. So that's a lot of challenges.
Right.
And you would think that Idaho is the most conservative state in the United States because the Republicans have had control of the House, the Senate, and the governor's seat for the last over 3 decades.
Right.
But we're not. We're number one in increase in food stamps programs. Our homeless problems are rising to the point where they've even reached the U.S. Supreme Court. And then let's get into some of the things that happened during COVID.
Yeah.
We were the first state to arrest pastors for having church outside. We were the first state to arrest a mother for going to the park. We were one of the first states to raid businesses and begin to prosecute them for not shutting down during COVID under Governor Little's lockdown orders.
Right.
And so these are the things that are happening in Idaho, and I could go on and on. Governor Little, under his, establishment, advisory board or whatever, they're the first ones that outlawed the use of hydroxychloroquine out of all 50 states.
Wow.
This is clear back in March.
That's crazy.
March 19th, 2020. And so you're thinking like, what's going on? Idaho is supposed to be this really conservative state, but it's not.
Right. Right. So one of my favorite people to follow is Charlie Kirk. And one of the things that he uses as kind of a gauge anytime he's talking to anybody in political office is, what time is it? What time is it here in our country? What time is it here in Idaho? And I think some of the things that you're touching on, people would use the term rhino or, less than having integrity, some of those other things. But what we're seeing is the platform is still good, but the people are not enforcing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's because we've got complacent.
Right.
We think that we can go to the voting booth, and if it has an R next to it, then we're okay.
Yeah.
But those days are over. Those times are over.
Right.
Because there are a tremendous amount of politicians that have entered the political arena and said that they're Republicans when they're not.
Right.
And what should make them a Republican or not? Their platform.
Exactly.
But we've got people like Governor Little, who clear back when the Proposition 8 movement was going on in California, well, he was for gays being able to get married. And that's our governor now.
Yeah.
He was the only elected representative in Idaho that backed, gay marriage. And we haven't identified him as a rhino yet. We moved him up the political ladder. He became the Senate pro temp, and then the lieutenant governor, and then the governor. When he has these ideas that are completely opposite from what most people in Idaho really believe in.
Right. Right. Have you had the opportunity to debate Governor Little?
No, I've called him out several times, but he hasn't taken the challenge.
Okay.
I'm hoping there is a public television, network that's inviting us to a debate. So hopefully I'll be able to debate him there.
Good. So as audacious as the question might sound, what makes you think you can win?
No, that's a great question. Well, one is we're a state of less than 2 million people.
Right.
And the people in Idaho are very conservative. And let's look at just recently some things that have gone on. The best poll that we have is the Republican primary here in Idaho, right?
Right.
Because those are real numbers that we can go with. And if you take the Democrats that crossed over and voted in the Republican primary,
Right.
because there was about 36,000 of them that did that. Let's take them out of the equation.
Okay.
Then more than half of the Republican Party membership voted against Governor Little.
Wow.
And there's a major fracture in the Republican Party membership base over this rhino conservative
Yeah.
issue. And so that is very telling, and it also is like this opportunity that we have to jump on, because
Right.
now we've got the Republican Party that rightfully is not okay with each other. You've got this rhino establishment who's been controlling the Idaho elections for the last 4 decades.
Right.
And then you've got the other half that are just tired of it. So then, and that's about, there's about 600,000 Republicans
Okay.
in Idaho. So let's just split them in half, say 300,000 already did not vote for Governor Little.
Right.
They voted for a conservative candidate.
Right.
And then there's the unaffiliated voters,
Right.
which there's about 300,000 of those in Idaho. And this is where your libertarians hang out. This is where your, people who don't want to be part of the Democrat Party, don't be part of the Republican Party, kind of more your free-minded people hang out. And we hope to be able to get a lot of those people to vote and think our way, where they're already thinking what they're going to think, but to see the similarities in what we're saying. And then you have your Constitutional Party and your Libertarian parties. And then you have, about 150,000, give or take, of people that have moved in from California, Oregon, Washington, and other states that are fleeing to Idaho.
Exactly.
And they're realizing that what's happening here and who the establishment is the same thing that took their states down.
Exactly.
And so they're going to be they're very active. They're very active in my campaign.
Good.
And so you put those together, and we have a real strong chance of winning this election, of challenge the incumbent. And it's just, can we get to enough people fast enough?
Right.
That's really what our challenge is. It's like a sprint to as many people to show what's going on and what's been going on in Idaho, and get that exposed to enough people before the elections.
Right. Well, and coming into this conversation today, the folks that I had talked with, and I said, "Hey, I'm interviewing Ammon Bundy. Are there any questions you want me to ask?" The overarching sense was, you speak to the conscience of an awful lot of conservatives, but I think the fear is voting for Ammon Bundy going to give a Democrat candidate a foot in the door? And so I think for people to understand that there is a legitimate shot here, it's not just some pie in the sky wish.
Right.
Because I think all the way back to 2008, 2012 presidential campaigns, all of us at one point or another, we voted with our nose plugged, the least bad of all of those. And so I think there is that legitimate fear that, does Ammon Bundy have enough of the population to actually push it over the finish line and win, or is it just going to be enough to let a Democrat in?
Yeah.
And so
if you look at statistically, there's 136,000 registered Democrats in Idaho. That's like a very small group.
Right.
Now, they will get some of the unaffiliated voters as well. They just will. But it's statistically almost impossible for a Democrat to win. I mean, they'd have to have this ground movement and this people come out of the woodwork.
Right.
I mean, they'd have to go to the cemeteries and get a whole bunch of people. Which
I was going to say they'd have to stuff a few more ballot boxes.
Right. Which, hey, we know they're capable of that.
Exactly.
But it would have to be a tremendous amount to get to the 33% mark, where if we're splitting the vote, Brad Little and I are splitting the conservative vote, where they would have a chance. And it's statistically not there.
Right.
However, the establishment would love for people to believe that.
Exactly.
They would love. But I keep telling people, look, when Brad Little won the Republican primary, all you did now is have 2 Democrats in the race.
Yeah.
That's all you have.
Right.
You have 2 liberals that are in the race. Look what Governor Little did. Look who he is. Look at his voting history. Look who he is. He is nothing more than a Democrat, in Republican clothing. That's
Right.
all he is. And so, okay, so, pick your poison, I guess.
Yeah.
Or you have this other choice out here that's truly conservative.
Right.
That's going to minimize the size of the Idaho government. That's
Right.
going to get us, we haven't been able to pay our own bills in Idaho for 38 years.
Yeah.
And a third of our budget comes from the federal government.
Right.
And the federal government controls 61% of our land and 72% of our subsurface mineral rights. These are things that just fundamental things that we have to correct in Idaho, or we will not be able to continue as a free state.
Right. And I think for people to really understand that, as much as there's areas where they say, hey, Californians stay out and Washingtonians and Oregons, they really are the political refugees of those states, and they're seeing Idaho kind of like the globe used to see America as the last beacon of freedom. And then they're coming and they're here for a couple of months and they're realizing, wait, Idaho's infiltrated as well.
Yes.
And so to be able to push back on that and be what the rest of the country expects us to be, I think it's important. This is the time for us to actually stand up and be the Idaho that everybody thinks we are.
Yeah, and if we do this and we get it right, then we become this ensign, this light for the other states to follow, because it will, if we do it right, and we apply the correct principles and we do it properly, then it will create prosperity.
Yeah.
It'll create tranquility, just freedom, and the challenge is people fleeing here and just coming in. But other states will be like, well, look what Idaho's doing. Look at the economic prosperity that they're generating simply by applying these principles. Look at the peace, and look at the the quality of life that's being created because of what Idaho is doing. And other states will follow. Other states will follow. They'll start. In fact, we can start becoming allies with other states and really pushing this. And then not only that, that's where the proper check and balance is for the federal government.
Exactly.
For the states to say, look, you're not doing this in our state. And then multiple states standing together saying, you're not going to do this in the states.
Right.
And then all of a sudden the federal government's like, well, wait a minute. We paid you, $2 billion last year in this and this and this fund. You have to comply. And we're like, no, we're not going to play that game anymore.
Right.
And so that's what needs to happen. It needs to happen for our entire nation, and it needs to happen for the spark of freedom that is almost lost in the world.
Right. It's, when our founding fathers said that our rulers rule under the consent of the governed, I think talking about what time is it, it's time for the governed to remember that they're the ones that give consent.
Yep.
And that we can withdraw that consent at any point.
Yeah.
And we are called as Americans to hold our rulers accountable, because they're there because we allow them to be, not because of any other reason. And
that's right.
so I think just for people to understand that it's time to stand up. And Idaho, it is time to wake up. Because the Democrats, that whole liberal progressive agenda has been sneaking in while we've been going to soccer games and hunting and fishing and everything else.
That's right. Well, we're working, taking care of our families, doing the things that we're supposed to do, and they have snuck in. I mean, let's look at Washington, Oregon, California, Nevada, New Mexico, Colorado, all ultra-conservative states. All of them, very conservative states that now are very liberal states where Democrats and liberals have taken over, and they're actually destroying their states. And I grew up in Nevada. I grew up in southern Nevada, and if 20 years ago you would have said that Nevada was going to be this liberal democratic state, I would have said no way. I mean, it was like the epitome of rugged individualism. We were, Nevada. I mean, a barren wasteland. No one even liked. They just flew over us, right? But we loved it, and it, we had a lot of pride in it, and And now it's just been taken over by liberals and turned into where the liberal policies are now reaching all the way out to the rural areas of every part of Nevada. That's what's happening to Idaho right now.
Right.
Except we're not quite there yet. It's not too late
Right.
to say no and
Yeah.
to stick to our conservative identity.
Right. It kind of, my husband and I were talking last week, Idaho is kind of becoming the Alamo. It's the last stand. And, you know, thank God for DeSantis in Florida, and there's pockets. But, you know, on this side of the country, Idaho really has to stand up and push back.
I agree.
With all the different bills and agendas and budget stuff that has come up in the last year here, not even going all the way back to COVID, you know, the writing is on the wall, and we are definitely a target for that whole agenda. So
Absolutely.
So what are some of the biggest obstacles that you've encountered in your campaign?
So the biggest obstacle is very much what you've already asked me, people believing that I can win.
Yeah.
I mean, my job right now is to convince people that I can actually win.
Right.
And I can convince them. I do my best through statistics, through, you know, what happened at, you know, COVID and where we're at, and the amount of people that are showing up and support. You know, so but that's the biggest challenge I face is convincing people that I can win. Yeah, I'm the underdog. I'm you know, going to be probably outspent 5-1.
Right.
And those things. But we have great examples across the country right now where the underdog, the person who spends, you know, I mean, I think the truck driver who won in whatever, I can't remember what state it was, he spent like $5,000 on his race.
Yeah.
That shows that people, you know, are really looking for a change. And so I hope people will, you know, understand that statistically and in every other way, there's a great possibility for me to win.
Right. And I had seen a comparison, I believe it was the Arizona primary with Carrie Lake, where she only spent, I think it was 5 cents or 50 cents per vote, and her next closest challenger had spent $5 to $10 per vote. And you know, you break it down, and it's not about the big money anymore. No. Like, it really is kind of this groundswell of we the people, and you know, just going out, knocking doors, shaking hands, and it's putting feet to everything that you believe in.
There's the establishment, if you will, which I think that's a good name for them, but they're very connected. Their roots are very deep, and their money is very deep. And I mean, anybody who is their guy just benefits with, you know, millions and millions of dollars automatically. They don't even hardly have to work for it. And so, you know, it's a challenge when someone like me, who's never run, just building a campaign, which I've been so impressed by the people that have, you know, worked so hard in my campaign and all the things that we've done. I mean, it's been tremendous. We built our own software. We have, you know, representation, good, solid representation all over the state. Very, very good network. And so, you know, I'm amazed at what we've been able to do in the last year and a half. Yeah. But I mean, we're fighting an establishment who's been doing this for, you know, 100 years. Yeah. and they're very, very connected with extreme amount of wealth. But what we're seeing them topple. Yeah. We're seeing that even to some of the people that were very sympathetic to the establishment, through the last couple of years, they said, well, you guys went too far. Yeah. Like, not even they are willing to go as far as the establishment has gone in even these very conservative states. They're like, no, you know, locking down people, you know, suspending parental rights, the state planning on taking children for quarantine centers, that type of stuff. You guys have gone too far, and so they've lost their support. Right, right. And, you know, and it really has been this groundswell of parents. You know, you poke the mama bear, and now we're going to, it's all over at that point. You know, we saw that in Virginia. That's how you win, right? That's how you win. Yeah, exactly, exactly. Well, we're starting to kind of wrap up our time. How can people learn more about who you are?
Google and Wikipedia, that's kind of sketchy as far as what you're going to find. So how do people find out real facts about Ammon Bundy?
Yeah, so votebundy.com is my
Okay.
website. That's I do have just kind of a generic ammonbundy.com website, but
Okay.
Vote Bundy is where my campaign information is. And yeah, the other day I Googled myself and I thought, who is this guy? He's just a crazy,
Well, and that's
scary guy. I was like, I don't really like this guy.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just a bunch of lies. There is a fake news.
Yeah.
I have stood against them now for almost a decade, and I've stood very hard against them, to the point where if they could take away my life, or at least incarcerate me for the rest of my life, they would have liked to, and they tried to.
Right.
So, none of that other stuff. I mean, go there if you want to be entertained. It's a lot of fun, But if you want to really find out what's going on and who I am, go to votebundy.com.
Okay, votebundy.com. Yeah, because like you, I was getting ready to talk with you, and I got on Wikipedia and on Google, and I just thought, I don't know, how do I even ask questions? But then I had to realize, wait, that is exactly the point of mainstream media.
Yep.
To spin things in such a way that they're gonna make you decide before you have ever talked with or met somebody.
Yeah.
And we've seen that all the way through the country with different candidates that the mainstream media decides are unworthy, and so they make them out to be lunatics. And
Yeah, I mean, I've been married for 21 years. I have 6 kids, 3 boys, 3 girls. My oldest is married. She's getting ready to have a baby. I mean, I'm a family man,
Congratulations!
I believe in the Lord Jesus Christ. I have a testimony of Him being my Savior. I mean, what else? I mean, I go to church. I'm an entrepreneur. I've started multiple businesses and built them up to multi-million-dollar levels, and then sold them. So I'm just a person.
Yeah.
But I decided at one point, I kind of got thrown into it when all that happened to my family in 2014. I decided, look, I'm not just going to sit around and allow this stuff to happen. And because of that, I've been constantly attacked.
Yeah.
And but if you can really find out what I've done, you'll realize that I've stood for people.
Right.
And that I believe that the position of governor is all about standing for people.
Right. Right. Well, Ammon, thank you so much for meeting with me today, for answering my questions, and for just being authentic in all of this. And I do, I wish you the best of luck in November, and I know you've got a long stretch coming up in these next couple of months, and we wish you well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of Impact. Please feel free to comment and share with your friends, and hopefully use this episode as a springboard to your own raw and unfiltered conversations. Please remember that, as in any conversation, the views expressed by our guests may or may not represent the views of the host or the Impact team, and the purpose of these interviews is to allow our guests to speak freely and for our audience to come to their own conclusions. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please join us again next time on the next edition of Impact.